Hello, and welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast. I'm your host, Elissa Shuck. Whether you're going for that next promotion, looking for a job, or making a career pivot, I'll teach you how to navigate it all so you can have the career you want.
Welcome to the Love Your Work Life podcast, episode 26.
So I'm sitting here with a big giant cup of coffee and I'm thinking about strengths and weaknesses. I'll tell you, this is something that all of my clients have trouble with. When we get into the mock interviews and the interview practice questions and that back and forth that we do where I ask a question, they answer, we stop, we debrief, we redirect. The question that is of most concern for everyone tends to be the tell me about your greatest strength and tell me about your biggest weakness questions. And what I find really fascinating is most people can't think of an example for either one. Not being able to think of a strength doesn't really surprise me, because no one trains us to do that. No one trains us to think about our accomplishments, to identify our strengths, to focus on our strengths, and develop our strengths. I mean, why are there so many personal development books out there, right? It's kind of this question of, human nature and how do we leverage that? So that part doesn't really surprise me. It does surprise me a little bit that people have trouble coming up with a weakness. Here's why I think that is because you're afraid you're going to pick a weakness that is going to be so terrible or uncover some, big giant gap and prevent you from getting the job. If you talk about that weakness, it's not really that you don't know what it is, but it's that, oh my gosh, what if I pick the wrong one? So I want to tackle both of these questions for you and help you make it really, really easy. So let's talk about the weakness. Really, the way I see it is that weaknesses are really the other side of a strength. And you may have heard interview tactics saying, when you're asked about your weakness, turn it into a strength. And I'm not really suggesting that here. I'm not suggesting that you're playing a game in the interview and turning a weakness into a strength. But the reality is, and I see this all the time in the behavioral strength profiles, personal dynamics reports that I review with my clients, and that is there are other sides to a strength. It's kind of the yin and yang of things. It's the other side of the coin. So if you think about it, when you have a strength that's taken to its extreme, or you have a strength that has a dark side, if you will, that's the one to uncover. So let's try a couple of these. So say someone asks you, what is your greatest weakness? Then you can say, I tend to get very laser focused on a project, almost to the exclusion of other things. An example of that would be, I was on a project that had a really tight deadline. It had competing priorities, and what I found was that I had to get super laser focused and hands-on in order to feel like I was in control of making sure things got done. And because I was so laser focused, I wasn't involving other people that could actually help accomplish the project on time. So the way I've learned to manage that is when I feel myself like I really want to take control, I take a step back and think it through and say, okay, who could help me? Who could I delegate to? Who could I bring in that has particular knowledge and expertise to help me? Now, that was a really kind of off the top of my head example. But the truth is that there's a lot of those things. And when you become very laser focused or a control freak in a project, it probably means that you hold yourself to a high standard, that you're very deadline oriented. You could be very detail oriented. And wanting to take control of the quality and the deadline is just the other side of that great trait you have of wanting to present an end product, a work product that meets everyone's expectations and is a high level of quality. So when you start to think about the things that come natural to you, the things that you like to deliver, start to think about when those maybe go off track a bit. And that could give you some insight to a weakness that you can share. Now, the formula is always, here's the weakness that I've identified, here's an example of it, and don't forget to talk about, here's how I manage it. Now, just to backtrack a little bit, I'll usually suggest that you never use the word weakness in your answer. It could be something like, here's one of the challenges that I encounter. But always remember that formula. Here's the challenge, here's an example of it, and most importantly, here's how I manage it. Because all you're really doing is showing the hiring manager that you're like everybody else. You're a human, you have things about you that you need to manage, and that's all they're looking for. They just want to understand how you show up in the workplace and how you handle challenges. Personal challenges and how you handle those are an indication of how you will handle other challenges. One last thing about weaknesses is pick one. Don't worry about trying to interpret which weakness is going to be the least offensive in that interview. Pick one, have your example, and stick with that throughout all of your interviews. That's going to give you a sense of ease and certainty about it. You won't be feeling unprepared. You'll really just know what it is, be able to have it roll off your tongue, and it'll make it so much easier. Now let's go on to the strengths. What is your greatest strength is something that sometimes is hard for people to find. And again, like I said at the beginning, it's because we're not really trained to do that. So here's what I want you to do when you think of a strength. Look at the job description, find something in that list, some bullet point that really resonates with you, that you feel like, oh my gosh, yes, this job was written for me. I can totally jump in here and do this. Now, this is where I want you to pick a strength that is highly relevant to the requirements of the role. If my strength is I know how to manage a project, but that isn't listed in the requirements of the role, then I'm going to pick something different. I'm going to pick something that aligns. Because here's what you're doing. When you pick a strength that you have that aligns with something in the job description, now you are showing the hiring manager how you are the solution to their problems and you are the person to help them achieve their aspirations. This is just good marketing, my friends. This is picking something that you know without a doubt you can do, aligning it to a specific need or aspiration in the role, and sharing it. And the more you can share it with a sense of ease and certainty, the better it is. Because now you are basically showing this hiring manager that you are a person who has a plan to help them solve a problem, has a plan to help them achieve that aspiration. So when you're doing a strength, this is the one that you're going to change up depending on the role you're applying for. But you've got some clues in there. The clues are in the job description. The clues are in you knowing your transferable skills, the workplace strengths that underpin the successes you've had. And of course, the formula is going to be similar. You're going to pick a strength. You're going to give an example of how that strength shows up in the workplace. And you're going to share how you see yourself applying that strength in the future. All right. I hope these tips have given you less anxiety about these questions, because they're so doable and there's no reason to be afraid of them. Use them as your opportunity to share why you are a great candidate for the role. All right, until next time, guys, thanks so much.
Hey, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you have to come check out my Love Your Work Life programs on Teachable. You can choose from on-demand courses or personalized one-on-one coaching with me. We take all of this material and apply it so that you can live it and create the career you want. Because when you love your work life, all the other parts of life get better too. So go to Love Your Work Life Teachable as search terms, or love-your-work-life.teachable.com. I will see you there.